Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. Jerri and I always love to get wisdom from ed leaders for ourselves, but then of course we always love to spread it to other ed leaders. And this one, it sounds like a good one. Come in the chaos. Well, I guess that means, schools have a little bit of chaos. And so we're going to learn from our guest today about some case studies and different techniques that can help with that calm. Looking forward to it.
Well, Jamie, you probably have known Glenn for a few years, but I was fortunate to really meet him through the Seaside Celebration in New Jersey. And this last year, he was named as the Superintendent of the Year. Yes. And I remember reading through all of the things that he did, and I was just shocked at the number of things that he has done for his school district. And then I was at FETC, and I see that he's having a session about the book he wrote. And I'm thinking, how does he have time to write a book on top of all of the innovation? Because he's really innovative and his kids get to do such innovative things. And so I wasn't able to go to the session. So I downloaded the book and I read it on the flight home.
You did?
I did. Calm in the Chaos. And the thing about the book is this. It would be the perfect training tool for future administrators in their administrative classes, because he has all of these case studies that are so real, and they have ethical dilemmas that we all face every day. But the bad thing about it was I'm on an airplane and I'm wanting to turn to my partner and talk about it, because I really wanted to talk to somebody about these case studies because they were very interesting. So,
it sounds like it would be because of your wish to talk about it with somebody, it would be a great book study, as you're saying.
Oh, it would be a great book study. So, Glenn, welcome. We talked a lot before we introduced you formally, and you're practicing your Stoicism, just being quiet while we chat on and on and on.
But intro.
Welcome, and tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then tell us why a book based in Stoicism. We don't hear that a lot.
No.
Well, thank you for the kind intro. It is an honor to be on your show, and appreciate the both of you for all that you do for education. It is really needed in today's day and age for all of us who are in the thick of it, right? So I'm the current superintendent in the Brigantine Community School District. It's down in Brigantine, New Jersey, right next to Atlantic City, New Jersey. So I have the amazing luxury of working at the beach with incredible families, incredible scholars, incredible staff, and incredible community. And right, who doesn't want to work at the beach? And
that's right.
So the last several years have been a whirlwind. I've been here. I started a month before the pandemic started, and we achieved and done a lot over the past 4 years, and extremely proud of all the successes that these kids and staff have done. Before that, I was a principal. Before that, I was a superintendent elsewhere, and then a principal before that, assistant principal, history teacher, varsity soccer coach. So I've come up and done pretty much a lot of the educational background. But why did I write a book? So here you mentioned, like, Jerri and Jamie talk about like all these innovative things I've done, and people who follow me know I'm really big into tech and what the world can and going to be. And why did I write about all these ancient people who are dead? Why am I talking about, 2,000 years ago? Well, when you read the Stoics, such as Marcus Aurelius or Seneca or Cicero, their quotes and their readings still hit home today. We're still talking about human emotion. We think we're dealing with logic, but yet you're dealing with people's personalities. You're dealing with people's emotions each and every day. And they went through a lot of different scenarios themselves as leaders, not to extent that we are, like we're talking life or death for some of them. But they went through all these different scenarios through leading people and or trying to help find people the right way to have a successful life. And, here I am as a superintendent in a great district, but before I got here, all my successes were hard. And I had to deal with a lot of adversity. I had to get knocked down a bunch of times. I had to fail a bunch of times. I had to deal with people who were not always the kindest. So, when you're in an administrative position, like we put in the book, it's like part of being leadership's like being in a fishbowl in the middle of a shooting range. All you can do is just, you're watched the whole time while everybody's shooting and there's not much really you can do. So I wanted to help all these new administrators coming into the field and veterans too. I think that's the beauty of it. We know this, like the last couple of years, we've connected with more leaders more than ever because we need to lean on each other. But we've also seen some of the very best in the business leave because they got fired and or had to resign and or just take it anymore. So as I'm mentoring these leaders across the country, their struggles are, they're about to embrace all these different things, like you said, Jerri, all these case studies that they're going to deal with one way or another. And how can we help them? And that was my goal with Danny, or my co-author, Daniel Bauer, was to try to put something together that keep people somewhat grounded, knowing that it's been done before and that you can get through this if you use the right disciplines in life. So I think that's why a techie innovative guy went back to the old history of why we put together Calm in the Chaos.
Well, you said you were a history teacher, so I guess that's sort of natural in that way too. But I love how you mentioned not only new and aspiring leaders, but also veteran leaders, because a lot of, veteran leaders know they've been through it, right? But sometimes you do lose that calm in the midst of a chaos, especially with so many of the different challenges that have arisen in the past several years. So there are different waters to navigate. And I bet this is a really great tool for a nice reset for many.
Yeah. And that was the goal. We put together the different chapters based on wisdom, temperance, courage, and justice. And then final aspect of equanimity, which is trying to bring all of them together. But like I mentioned, here we are as leaders, and our goal is to make future leaders. And we have to have intentional conversations with our teams. And they're not always going to be easy. It's not all rainbows all the time. You can be positive psychology, but it's not always going to be Pollyanna. So, you need to be able to sit down with your leadership team, and that's your job, right? Is to make your team stronger and make your team think at a cohesive unit, as well as what are they going to do one day when they jump up to a different position. So when we put these different case studies in based on the virtues of the Stoics, it's having those conversations like, hey, the football coach is beloved, but the football coach has been taking money on the side. And now you have to make an administrative decision on how to go through this. And or, the other one is, there was an irate parent at 7:00 in the morning when you walk in the door. How are you dealing with that? Yeah, it's going to be there. Or, any type of situation where it's working with a teacher, where there's an argument about two teachers or administrator or teacher, how do you work through that? And I think we don't do a great of a job of having these intentional conversations with our fellow administrators to help grow them. How would you get through it? To Jerri's point, hey, the person next to me on the plane, how would you get through this situation? We list 3 questions to have these conversations just to get the juices flowing and have these, there could be this way or that way. And ultimately, that's why we chose to go that route, to try to make the people grow.
And I wanted to say that the case studies, I'm sure, are real, because real life, I'm sure of it, because
we might have changed some names around, but yes.
Protect the innocent. Yes. And I could tell that they were authentic, because I remember being in classes and they would throw one out and you're kind of like, but these were the real deal of what you deal with every day.
Yes.
So I appreciated the authenticity of those. But I wondered, what are the principles that you base the book on? Like, for someone that I have always thought Stoicism is something I would like to know more about. So what are the principles and how would I learn more about it?
Yeah. So, we do not claim to be the expert by any means. So, we look to Ryan Holiday, we look back to Marcus Aurelius, we do a lot of the readings and so forth, but we base it off of the virtues of Stoicism, which is wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. And then that's just taking a deep dive into what do they actually mean. So as a leader, how are you growing to learn more each and every day? And how do you use that wisdom at the correct time? You know, like there's having justice and courage and temperance, right? But I wouldn't say like in the middle of a board meeting that a parent or somebody is yelling at the board and or superintendent that you go up and go hit them or go yell at them, right? Like what
Right.
happens after that? We see national media, all the things that go wrong. So you have to be able to internalize that, realize
Yeah.
how you look and what you're saying is being perceived in numerous ways. And it represents yourself, it represents your district, and it represents the board. So that's a hard thing for leaders to realize, but like I said, to think logically, not just take it all emotionally. So that
Right.
dive into, all right, how do you deal with this? Like I equate like Marcus Aurelius. All right. Marcus, 2000 years ago, becomes the emperor. When he first becomes emperor, he quickly goes to his brother and says, I'm going to make you co-emperor. So right there, he pushes his ego aside and he has somebody working with him. Now, he's
Yeah.
nothing like Marcus whatsoever, but he at least was able to internalize that, hey, this guy's going to work with me. We're from up together. And then once he passes on, Marcus is on his own. Well, what happens then? He has people who are undermining him. He loses 7 to 8 children of his own to death. He's working through a plague, right? He has people backstabbing him here and there. His best friend tries to throw a coup against him, to try to take over his position.
Mhm.
Does that sound like a lot like leadership today?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
It does.
Right?
Right.
Like, we
Yes.
had the COVID years. We had, people who are always clamoring to get to the top over somebody else, or people who are Machiavellian behind your back. Like, how do you stay with that? And he stays calm, cool, and collective, and he takes offense to the fact that he could have done a better job with his friend that's trying to backstab him and take him over. He looks
Right.
at it like
Right.
like how can he make the world better when his whole entire empire is dealing with a plague?
Right.
Or he starts selling off a lot of the antiques and so forth that he has to get money back into Rome. Whereas most rulers or dictators take it to themselves and think strictly about themselves. So I look at Marcus like he's dealing with all these things. And how do you, continue to rise up for the betterment of your organization? What is your goal as a leader, right? Your job is to serve. The higher up you go, the more people you have to serve. But
Yeah.
it's
That's right.
not easy mentally. And so how do you stay grounded, like I said, with those 4 virtues that keep you somewhat in line, that can continue to guide you so people look toward you, when there is a crisis, that
Yeah.
you're calm, that you can get through these things because you read and continue to develop.
I love that. And I love, looking to the past to inform your present and to use that wisdom, to use those virtues, to use those principles, to learn from those experiences. And then also you really to respond and not react, to really take
Yeah.
in all aspects, and really, make good judgment, to therefore respond in the best possible way. And do you have it set up so that people, perhaps doing a book study, could actually role play through this? Is that how it's set up,
Oh,
or
yeah.
could they?
Yeah. So you could play, like each one is a practice of the virtues. So,
Okay.
you could, in that regard, you could be the person like, there you go. Here's one. You're at an event and a conference, and there's always vendors, right? And they're always trying to sell you these different products. So I know we've seen this on national publications where people who are accepting money on the side and
Right.
or
Oh,
making money extra from the vendor. So that's one of the scenarios we have is, hey, you're looking for these new types of technology or whatever it may be. And we kind of made this book timeless. The only thing we mentioned here of any technology is Chromebook, but everything else is going to be by human emotion.
yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
So if a vendor does come up to you and says, hey, I can give you this great deal on this technology, and here's a couple extra $100 on that you can
Right.
pay to yourself.
Yeah.
Now you can have that conversation with your team. All right, you're going to play the person at the vendor. You're going to play the person as this, young aspiring leader or current leader or veteran leader. How do you handle that?
Right.
Money's money, right? Like people like money. How do you deal with the ethical situation? when all eyes are on you? You know, how do you deal with, like I said, when you goes to, let's see, you know, how do you deal with like you're a brand new superintendent and you're a brand new principal and you're gonna go in there and change the world, right? Well, no, you got to stop and slow down. You got to have conversation. You got to listen. You got to learn for a while,
Yeah.
right? But yet, and then you find out, then there's another case study where, you know, you finally get to the district that you thought was wonderful. And then you realize there's so many inner workings behind the scenes that you never knew about. And how do you get all these people together? You know, or like I said, an argument with a teacher over an observation score, or dealing with parents, or dealing with a board member. So we put all of those into those practice situations with 3 questions, and they can obviously delve into it more. But on experience it, one way or another, it's going to come at the forefront. Jerri, you were a superintendent for how many years? Like, I know you went through this before, you know.
Oh, yes, I did.
You know.
And every single one of your scenarios I could relate to or put a face with. I think that I've gone through it. But, you know, I came very slowly to the superintendency. I had been in the classroom 13 years and then a counselor, then a principal, and then the superintendent position. So I was older when I got there. With so many people leaving the profession, I think this book is perfect now because we have so many younger people.
Yes.
And I found for myself, with time, I developed a little more courage and temperance than I had when I was younger. And having the opportunity to go through these scenarios before they happen to you, because they will, I think is a real gift to administrators, because I'm hearing a lot of concern about professionalism and leadership in education right now. And so after COVID is, you know, we have a void there. People just aren't there anymore.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Jerri. Like, I'm sure you had some really good mentors, or as we talk about the book, the anti-heroes, people you don't want to be like.
Yeah,
You
and
know, and you
sometimes they
learn
teach you
from.
more.
You know, so
Yes.
and that's the question. Like, these new leaders coming into the field, there'll never be a shortage of people that want the job. There'll be a shortage of people that can actually do the job, right? So
Oh,
how do you
that,
have,
well,
you know, so how do you have the mentors for you? So that's another thing Danny and I thought about in the book, was that here, now you have a mentor. If you're a historical person, you want to learn about leadership, read more about Marcus Aurelius, read more about Seneca, read more about Zeno. They were leaders, right? You could use them as your mentor. You're not always going to get the best mentor in life. You have to hopefully go figure them out, and hopefully you have multiple. But for these new leaders, who's teaching them? What systems are they coming up through? Or their bosses teaching them to have these intentional conversations? And how do you get through these hardships? Or are they just taking the quick, fast, easy way? And then when they get there, it hits you with all these angry, and you have to deal with it. You know,
yes.
like, how many disciples do leaders make a day? You know, and you have to be able to continue to move
Exactly.
forward because everybody's watching and you're in control of what you can. Right? You control what you are, your attitude, your efforts, and so forth. You can't control everybody else. That's
Right.
Great. Yep.
I was at our local service center, and superintendent had called in and wanted someone to come out to his district immediately. The pipes had broken. And the man at the service center said, "Why would you need me to come out?" And he said, "Well, you got to help me because I can't let anyone know that I don't know who the insurance agent is and I don't know who this is." And I'm thinking, that is not leadership. You have to be vulnerable and let people know, because nobody's expected to know it all. And I think sometimes people in the superintendency have that feeling that they should know it all. And
but here's the other thing. Are you strong enough to have a great team around you of diverse people and backgrounds that make you stronger? You know,
exactly.
like anything else. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to have people to push back on you, and not yes men and women. You know, that's a yes to everything.
Right.
And to your point earlier, without the ego, right? You do that when you get rid of
and that's part of the wisdom, right? Is you have, and the courage. You have the strength to sit down and be quiet for a couple of minutes and let somebody else on your team lead the way.
Yeah.
You know, and your goal is to make them better by giving them the authority to rise up a little bit and strength to do so. So, like I said, it ties in, and so many different of these virtues, how in depth you can go with leadership conversations. And I think that's the funny part, Jerry. I don't know if you noticed it when you had the cover, but they're all angry people on there, for a reason. They're all yelling. And when we were putting together the book cover, it was like paper airplanes and people smiling. And I wrote to the publisher and the illustrator. I said, look, I'm from the Northeast. There's not many happy people. I'm going to need a little more anger. And he's like, I'm from Philadelphia. I get it. And he designed this cover. But the point is like, you're going to deal with different people like this.
Right.
Regardless if it's mom or an aunt or grandmom or grandpop or whatever it may be, a second sister or whatever. People in today want instant answers. They feel there's no more, having that conversation with the leadership team too, that it's okay to disagree and still be friends.
Right.
I think we've gotten away from that in society. So how do you deal with families that are arguing and want no matter what, that you have to find a way to maneuver to become somewhat of a successful collaboration in some way? That's difficult to do. And if you don't have a boss that teaches you that or leads you through that, so like I said, I think we wrote it kind of like off of great mentors, experiences we had, we changed the scenarios. We do give some scenarios ourselves, how we try to deal with it, but we leave it open for those open conversations intentionally for that reason.
You do.
Similar to the book, Courageous Conversations too. They talk about the same thing, how to do those. And sometimes we think it should be just natural, but it's not. And a lot of it is the emotion that you mentioned. Yeah. So we have to, take that into consideration and use wisdom before we respond.
Yeah. And that's a great segue to the question that I have for you. Do you have any personal practices that you use when, you have that irate parent or board member or someone? Is there anything that you can share with us, a personal practice or something that gets you through it?
Yeah, I think look, don't get me wrong. There are times where I turn the music up on loud and I'm driving home and I'm gripping the steering wheel and I'm screaming at every Metallica lyric there is as I'm speaking, right? Like it just happens, but there's no one around me to watch this as I'm doing this, right? And I have an inside running joke with my assistant here. If I come out of my office and I'm screaming "Serenity Now" from Seinfeld, she's working "Insanity" later, and it's like an inside joke, like, "Hey, he's going through something, but let's figure it out."
Yes.
I take 10, 15-minute gratitude walks around the day. When I wake up, thankful for 3 or 4 things that are successful. I woke up today. Isn't that a great success, right?
Sometimes that's it.
Yeah. So, my children are healthy. This teacher did an amazing lesson on artificial intelligence the other day. She's actually embracing it and taking it and doing something with this. Our test scores have gone up. Our relationship with the chamber is going extremely well, the Chamber of Commerce. How do you continue to celebrate those all things and realize the amount of hard work that has gotten to you here, right? You got to be proud of that. But you also got to realize that you're always one mountain away. Once you get to the top of the mountain, there's another mountain.
That's right.
So you have to understand that you're not going to know it all. You better have a really good team around you. But for me, it's walking, it's exercising, being outside. Like I said, I'm at the beach, so salt air.
That's wonderful.
Recharge. I love reading, and I love having conversations with leaders all over the country, because then it's almost like therapeutic in a way when we're saying, "Hey, what are you doing? How are you doing this?" It really helps us to do that. And that was something that I really enjoyed during the COVID years, that we had so many collaborative Zooms for people all over the country that we could work together as one. And I think that really built the connections here at our school. Like we really connected with our parents more than ever, and how do we keep doing that, working together? So, like I said, Jerri, I love working out, love being outside, love being on the boat when I can be on a boat. But it's also being grateful for where I am today.
Well, there's one more thing that I notice you do, and you post inspirational quotes on Facebook, and I really enjoy those. So sometimes I bet you're posting it for yourself, and sometimes it's for others.
It's funny. I get that a lot. Like I'll post something and people will DM me and they say, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No, I just posted it. It's just meant to be for whoever." Once again, it's like that philosophy is I'm trying to balance sharing my family. I love to showcase all the great things about my school, And at the same time, it goes back to, I know people are dealing with things behind closed doors
Right.
that they don't share with anybody else. So maybe this quote will help them get through another 5-10 minutes of their day. If that helps, then that's all. That's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm trying to uplift in a society that is constantly pushing down.
What I think is also so great is that, in New Jersey, we have small districts, but you really are intentional about connecting with national organizations. And I think, I think you've got a love of learning. And not only do you like to do that for yourself, but here with your book is a perfect example of how you are sharing that with others too, with that love of learning. Because I think it does. And, it's just nice that you have this great, you've cast this net of different leaders and different people to lean on. And I think that's a really nice piece to your makeup.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's the thing. Like, I had people who brought me underneath their wing, and I'm hoping I can do the same for the others. Like, it's my way of giving back,
Yeah.
So, and leadership's not easy, right? Leadership is very difficult in today's day and age. So if I'm able to build up with these national associations and build that giant world into a smaller world and get to meet new people
Yes.
and link up
Right.
and then bring them back to my staff and bring them back to my community, I think that's how we've been able to elevate, by working with each other instead of competing against each other.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It's a great technique. Yeah.
Yes, I would
Good,
totally
good.
agree. This has been a wonderful conversation. I have really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the book. And will there be another book coming out?
Yeah, everybody keeps asking about that. I have a couple of different things in my head. I know Danny's working on a couple of his own projects. People ask me about innovation books and so forth.
Yeah.
Or AI books. Well, I know AI is a big fad right now, but by the time that book is published, it's already outdated in today's artificial
Innovation. Right. Innovation.
So I'll
Wordless
keep pushing forward
more.
on maybe so leadership aspect to help people get through. So we'll see.
Right. Leadership's timeless. It's
Timeless. Yep.
it's not going to get outdated, that's for sure. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And you had the podcast girls that were on the show
Yes.
months ago. Please tell them hello and that they have inspired us. And we really enjoyed having them on the show.
I will certainly do that. They'll be extremely happy about that.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're watching or listening to this episode, you want to go back a couple episodes and hear from the 3 students who have their own podcast on empowering girls. And which I think is really nice because Glenn made sure to empower them and
Right.
get their work shown. And they were very inspirational, and it was great to have them on. And yes, Jerri and I learned from them. So that was really wonderful.
sure
So
did.
check out that podcast, and then also check out the show notes here to get access to Glenn's book.
And finally, Glenn, where can people find you online?
Yeah, they can find me anywhere on social media. Google me, obviously. And then on X or LinkedIn, it's Glenn G. Robbins. On Facebook, Instagram as well. And then also online on my website at glennrobbins.com.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you,
much
Glenn.
for being here.
Well, thank you, ladies, for allowing me to showcase this book and talk a little bit about Brigantine and all the great things we got going on down here. It's
Yes.
much appreciated.
Highly
Wonderful.
recommend the book. It's great.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify, and subscribe to us on YouTube.